Yes, welcome back to my F1 2021 My Team Career Mode, where we're joined for episode number 8 for my home Grand Prix, the British Grand Prix, where we'll be racing around Silverstone. So this should be a good episode, but I've got high hopes for it, even though I'm not usually the best around this circuit, but we're going to try and make things work. We're going to give it our best shot regardless. But anyway, be sure to check the previous episode out where we were racing around Austria, round the Red Bull Ring, and there was some drama and a few spills out on track. So be sure to check that one out before you watch this one. And whilst you're at it, click that subscribe button down below to not miss an episode and keep up to date with the story so far. Now that's enough waffling, let's jump straight into this video. And in the previous episode, spoiler alert, Lewis Hamilton won and clawed his way back into the championship fight against his teammate and rival Valtteri Bottas, he's been looking very good and very quick around the track, and he's bringing the fight to Lewis. He's not just going to sit back and be Lewis's teammate anymore. He's doing what he should have done in the previous few seasons in real life, and he's showing much more of a fight and much more character out on track. But let's not rule out Daniel Ricciardo and Max Verstappen also, who are both following closely behind the championship leaders, and it's still early days, so any sort of a mistake on track from both of the Mercedes drivers could cause costly for them in their championship fight and allow one of these guys battling out for third place to come through and take the championship for themselves. So there's still a long way to go in this season and anything can happen. Now, as you can see on screen and from the title of this video, you can see that we've put together a special one-off livery for our home Grand Prix. It's a blackout, sort of like a blackout dark green version of our car, sort of like a stealth version of the Shogs GP car that we've got going on. And as it's our first season in F1 and it's my home Grand Prix, it felt only right to put together a special livery for today's race. As you can see, I've tried to reverse the colorway from the original design and add some more splashes of that light blue, as you can see in the badge, and I think it works quite well. It works really well, especially with those hard tyres on. Yeah, I think it looks like a stunning car, and to be honest, I wish I could use it throughout the rest of the season. It's that nice, but I think that's what makes it so special to use a one-off livery. You save it for these special occasions and bring it out for all these special races, and if they're not a more deluxe version of your current car, then you know you've done something wrong, really, don't you? Now, before we jump into today's qualifying session for today's race weekend, let's have a look at where our car stands compared to the other manufacturers, and we're still third from bottom in the grand scheme of things. Alfa Romeo are currently beating us, but we've got a bunch of upgrades coming through the works. As you just saw, an upgrade to our chassis has just come through as well, so that's going to help us massively in today's race weekend. And we're also going to spend some money in investing in our fitness centre to hopefully upgrade Felipe's racecraft, his awareness and his focus, as he does seem a little unfocused at the moment. Hopefully he can try and push on to become our second driver in the next season. But if not, then we're going to have to start thinking about getting him a replacement. But that's enough faffing about. Let's jump straight into this race weekend now. And to start us off in our home Grand Prix, hit with a 10-place grid penalty. Unfortunately, I didn't spot the issue sooner, and we had to replace our ICU going into this race as it was at 66%, so that was undoubtedly going to blow up during the race. So it's always better to be safe than sorry, and I know I would have been kicking myself if the engine was to blow up, so I would rather start from the back with a grid penalty than lose out on some points during the race. But nevertheless, we managed to get through Magnus and Beckett safely and across the line in our first lap round Silverstone, and it's provisional P14. We move down to P15 on our second lap as we have to stay out for another lap as there's only 2 minutes left, and obviously because of that ICU replacement we lost a load of time during this qualifying session, and we can only manage to get out 2 laps in this qualifying session, and it's another red sector, which means we are out of Q1 down in P19. So we're going to be starting from the back of the grid, obviously with that 10-place grid penalty next to our teammate Felipe Drugovich, who clearly doesn't want a spot for next year. Obviously just starting from the back of the grid every single race. I don't know whether that's down to the lack of experience or he's just not focused on the job. So we've got positions to make up, so let's jump straight into this race.
Welcome along then to Great Britain and the Great Silverstone Circuit for today's Grand Prix. With good opportunities to overtake at the end of the Wellington and Hanger Straights, there's a lot of potential for close action around the 3.6 miles of the Silverstone circuit. With 18 corners and average lap speeds of around 145 miles per hour, it's also one of the longest and quickest circuits on the calendar. Anthony Davidson joins me once again in the commentary box, and it's fantastic to have you with us here today. But I'm curious, as a man with experience out on the track, how do you stop those pre-race nerves from becoming overwhelming when you're lining up on the grid?
But from the moment qualifying's over, you start to feel the adrenaline in your body build up and the buzz in your stomach as you anticipate the rundown into turn one. It's all a bit like going into battle, and the unknown situation makes you nervous. Those pre-race nerves, the day you don't have them means that you don't care anymore. And of course you have to make sure that all the procedures are second nature to you so that they're not taking up too much of your capacity.
It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Norris, Ricciardo, Max Verstappen and Perez, Leclerc, Sainz, Vettel and Pierre Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Fernando Alonso and Ocon, Giovinazzi, Mazepin, George Russell and Mick Schumacher, Drugovich, Latifi, they'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Shah and Kimi Raikkonen finishes off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So it's not P22, but it is still the back row of the grid where teammate Drugovich gets bumped up into P19. So hopefully this helps us to claw away through the grid in the early stages of this race. And with any luck, we won't get stuck behind traffic as well. We're going to do the one stop onto the mediums, as the hards just doesn't seem like a good option for today's race. But to 5 red lights we go for our home Grand Prix around Silverstone, with the sunshine beaming down on us to bless us. And we are underway for our Season 1 home Grand Prix. We get a good start against Latifi, who's on the right hand side of us. Mick Schumacher gets a slow start as we try and find a way round the outside. We go shooting round the outside of Drugovich as we get a lot of those speed going into the first corner, dipping a tyre onto the grass for good measure, finding our way up the inside of Russell and Mazepin now. That's a great start for us. And now we can look onto the back of both the Alpines as Giovinazzi goes a bit slow, heading onto the Wellington straight. And now it's a battle of raw pace and speed as we use ERS to give us a better chance of getting past the Alfa Romeo car. We stay ahead going into the corner, which moves us up into P15 from the last row of the grid. So it's been an electric start for us at the start of our home Grand Prix. The crowd cheering us on as we go down the straight, fighting against one of the best to ever do it, Fernando Alonso, going to the inside now as we get into Copse, trying not to do a repeat of what happened to Hamilton and Verstappen in real life this season. But the Spaniard is still there as we enter Mackes and Beckett's now. He gets the upper hand, we stay in front by a toe, and we just about managed to stay in front as we exit that sector of the track. But for a second there, I thought we were surely going to collide. I think if we didn't go wide at that corner, we would have collided with Fernando and that would have ended horrendously. But because of Fernando's experience in F1, he could read me like a book, and he knows a rookie driver like the back of his hand. And if anything, they're going to be the fiery ones, going to be dive bombing into the corners. And like what happened, he knew it was a right move to back out of that situation. Let's have a look at the start of this race, and Hamilton got a good getaway from the start, managed to stay ahead of his rival Bottas, with both McLaren drivers and Red Bull drivers following closely behind. So this could hot up to be a great race at the sharp end. But down on my point of view, it's now lap 3, and that P13 position is starting to slip away. You know, those Alpine cars are very quick and much more developed than the Shog's GP car is. And even though we're not driving at our best at the minute, we can't afford to lose concentration anymore, because the second Alpine car, Fernando Alonso, I can see him in the mirrors, he's so close to my back end that any sort of mistake will be costly for us. And just like in lap 1, he's now tailing us as we enter Maggotts and Beckett's, but once again he looks to stay patient as we try and find our groove through these twists and turns of this iconic racetrack. And look at that, just as we predicted, on the top left hand corner Ocon is now almost 2 seconds ahead as we enter lap 4, and his teammate is now hot on my tail again as we go wide at turn 2. That invites him down round the outside. We have to close him off and shut the door on Fernando, and for now we stay ahead in P14, but Alonso is looking very fast right behind us, and it's only a matter of time before he makes the move on us. He's now got the slipstream down the inside, down the Wellington straight. We go wide towards the racing line as we try to get a better exit off of Brooklands and Luffield, but the Spaniard closes the door on us. We now try and switch it back towards the inside, getting onto the grass a little bit too much there. And now we see the sweeping shot down towards Copse. We're going so fast down into this corner. We're still hot on his tail. Alpine certainly haven't seen the last of me just yet as we're still there. Going into Maggots and Beckett's now, trying to find if we can get a move done on the exit of this section right now, just so long as we get a good exit off this corner. But it looks like Fernando has matched our speed going through those corners. If not, he's got the better of us, but now we're trying to use everything that we've got. ERS, DRS are flowing all the way down this back straight, but it's just not enough to catch up with the Spaniard, and we're going to have to wait till the next lap down the Wellington straight now, trying to find the move down the inside. But once again, he's parking his car so well, using that rear end to his advantage. And now we're trying to find the way round the inside, a copycat move of what we did on the previous lap, but this time he doesn't close it off. We get ahead going into Copse now, but Fernando Alonso doesn't lie down easily. We're now going side by side, wheel to wheel racing, going through Copse now. We leave him just enough room to work with, and we make that move sticks just somehow. That didn't end in disaster there. 90% of my body was just telling me that we we're both going to end up in the gravel trap just then. I envisioned it like it happened in real life or something like that. But this battle is far from over right now, as Alonso is still there on our back and we haven't lost him. We're weaving down the hangar straight, going left to right. He's going round the outside, trying to find his way round, but we've still got this position. We're still finding our way to defend against the two-time world champion. In the mix all that though, did Fernando make contact with me? I certainly felt contact into my back end, but for all we know, Fernando's still here on the next lap. He certainly doesn't look like he's had any damage to his car. We're trying to keep our footing round the inside, but he's not letting us. He's squeezing us off the edge of the track. He's getting frustrated. We'd make a dive bomb down the inside to try and reclaim our position. We get a snap of oversteer which sees Alonso through, and that error I think could prove to be costly for us. I don't think we're going to be able to catch up with the Spaniard now. He's in a much faster car lineup than we are, and I think we've done all that we can on this set of tyres. We defended so well up until this point, and now Fernando has got the pace to win this battle, unfortunately for us. But as Lewis Hamilton that leads the way of this Grand Prix, Valtteri Bottas still there closely behind, so the championship is still alive right now. Lando Norris splitting the standings right now, with Daniel Ricciardo and Verstappen also closely following behind the championship leaders. Charles Leclerc in 6th place, Sebastian Vettel in 7th, Sainz, Gasly and Stroll round off the top 10 places. Going back to our POV now though, and it's lap number 10. Alonso and Ocon are both steamed away up front. Ocon almost 9-10 seconds ahead of us, but there's the yellow flags as we enter this section right now, and Sebastian Vettel is out of this Grand Prix. He parks up on the left hand side, so that's some good news for us in this fight for the Constructors' Championship. But nevertheless, we are starting to feel some tyre wear now, and if we stand any chance of getting into the points, then we're going to need some fresh tyres soon so that we can keep nipping away at the cars ahead of us. But if only Vettel's DNF brought out the safety car, that would have been, we would have been in dreamland right now, as we would have caught up to all the cars ahead of us, as this is a very long circuit. If you make any sort of pit stop under a safety car, you're going to gain so much time on your competitors. So it's disappointing, but it's not what we didn't expect in the first place. We go on to the fresh set of mediums now, directly behind Alonso, who we can see just up ahead is also pitted at the same time as us. So it's not looking likely that we're going to make any sort of an undercut on the cars ahead, and we're going to have to utilise our own pace to claw our way up through the table. And now as we make our way on to lap 13 on these fresh sets of mediums, we're now joined with the cars yet to pit. So we're going to retake our position in this race back into P13, and I don't think you saw it, but one of the Red Bulls in this race, Sergio Perez, also pulled up on the side of the road with a DNF, so that's him out of the race, and crucially another position for us. But as we take a look at the sharp end now, and Bottas and Norris are in the pits, Lewis Hamilton clearly on a different strategy than Bottas. He's coming around the final bend now. He's been dominating and leading this race up until this point, but will he stay ahead as he crosses this line, going round turn 1 now? Bottas coming out of the pits. Will he stay ahead? Yes, he will. Bottas, he slots into that second place position, with Verstappen actually splitting Bottas and Norris. Norris moves down to P5 now as Daniel Ricciardo's teammate jumps up the order into P4. So Bottas now has a job on his hands. He wants to catch up with Lewis Hamilton and win this race, but he also has a peloton of cars behind him that he will also need to defend against if he wants to keep his lead intact. But we now rejoin with us onto lap 25. It's been a very boring race for us, I can't lie. We've been racing pretty well around this track, to be honest, but this car is just no match for the circuit, and today's been a real test for this car and keeping up with its competitors. So we're going to need to make some upgrades if we want to keep up with the points and if we want to keep getting into those top 10 positions. But this is the man of the hour. Lewis Hamilton wins his home Grand Prix. He's dominated this race, and it's been a well-deserved victory for the Brit. But for this Brit, you can see on screen now, it's certainly been a mediocre race. We've managed to jump up the order into P13 from the last row of the grid, but it's just not been enough to get into the points today.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Fermé.
Here we are then, a fantastic British Grand Prix, and what a performance it was from our race winners today. Tell me, Ant, how do you think they were able to deliver such an incredible result today?
I think that smart tyre management on track and very smooth driving definitely assisted in their victory today. That combination meant they got the absolute maximum out of their tyres at all times.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, a well-earned victory for Mercedes.
So it's victory for Mercedes yet again with a 1-2 finish. You just can't stop these guys. They're on fire at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo picks up P3 from P4, so I'm sure he'll be grateful with another podium over Max Verstappen. Lando Norris gets P5 on his home Grand Prix once again. Gasly, Sainz, Stroll, Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon actually round off the top 10. So Ocon managed to move ahead of Leclerc in those final few laps there. But at least this race still had some drama with myself and Alonso having a great battle throughout the early stages of the laps, and I'm sure he would be proud of that battle as well. In the driver's standings though, and Lewis Hamilton extends his lead at the top, now 10 points ahead of Valtteri Bottas, so he's beginning to pull away at the top of the table. Lando Norris moves ahead of Sergio Perez with that DNF. Gasly moves ahead of his teammate into P9, and Sainz jumps ahead of me in the standings as well. So there's definitely some work to be done back at the factory, and we can't just rely on flashy liveries to save us this time. So apologies for another tame episode, but I'm sure there'll be more drama in this season to come. So be sure to hit that subscribe button down below to follow along for more weekly content. And if you did like this video, then be sure to hit that like button as well. So I'll see you next time for the Hungarian Grand Prix. So if it's anything like what happened in real life, then I'm sure it's going to be full of drama and full of events. So be sure to stay tuned for that one.